is JT. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a former U.S. Army soldier and Iraq War veteran, and I recently spent 25 days on the road going to about 12 national parks. Roughly 7,200 miles from coast to coast, started in Virginia and ended in California. The parks I visited were Shenandoah National Park, Great Falls National Park, Manassas Battlefield, Lincoln Memorial, Big Bend, Carlsbad Caverns, Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, Dinosaur National Monument, Yellowstone, Olympic National Park, Mount Rainier, and Redwood National Park. I guess the thought of traveling to the national parks and taking the trip that I did started sometime in late spring. I really kind of wanted to reconnect with who I was before the military and before I started having issues with post-traumatic stress disorder. So in 2000, I joined the U.S. Army. I was in the 82nd Airborne for 4 years down in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. In 2003, I was deployed to Iraq, spent almost a year there, came back, and shortly after I was diagnosed with PTSD. It affects everyone differently. For me, it's just unwanted anxiety, stress, and aggravation in my normal everyday life. A good example of that is going to the grocery store. I try to go in the early mornings or maybe mid-afternoons where I know there's going to be the least amount of people there. The more people I'm around, the more anxious I get. I become hyper-aware, I guess you could say. So I just try to avoid situations that might trigger any negative thoughts or emotions in my everyday life. So I usually just tend to stay at home as much as possible. Over the years, I've researched how other veterans have dealt with the stresses of getting out of the military and then readjusting back into life. And the one common thing that I actually saw was there's a lot of veterans that will go out and explore the national parks. And the more I thought about it, it just seemed like something that could benefit me as well. So I jumped on the internet and started researching the national parks. One of the first things I noticed is that there's over 400 national parks, which is something I had no idea there was. And to top that off, I noticed that in 2016, they're going to be celebrating their centennial anniversary. And the fact that I own a camera and I use that as part of my therapy for my PTSD, I figured it'd be a really good opportunity to actually take my camera and put myself in the situation of getting out of the house, but also capturing beautiful footage of the parks at the same time and hopefully challenging myself along the way. Once I committed to myself in my mind that I was actually going to leave the house, I went ahead and started mapping out where I wanted to take my trip. And I kind of made that coincide with friends and family I haven't seen in a while. Once I had been on the road for a few days and even to a few different national parks, I think I started breaking out of my old comfort zone, which was really confining, and I started feeling a little bit more open. There's different challenges and things that the parks have that kind of opened me up and helped me push through those barriers. When you come down. So going to the Lincoln Memorial, I kind of felt like it was going to be problematic for me, just because it just kind of reverts back to the whole PTSD aspect and going into public. Once I got there, kind of settled in a little bit, I just kind of tried to focus on just getting footage and kind of focus myself on my camera work and what I was doing. It was a beautiful day to get out there, and the sun was out and people were out. It definitely got me anxious, but I'm glad I did it. Every park offers its own little adventure per se. I was out of shape, so I knew that going on hikes and the different terrain would kind of help me a little bit. Be another challenge on top of other things I'm already trying to deal with. But it's a challenge I welcome. So having my friend Kelly with me was pretty helpful because she really did push me out there on some of the harder trails, ones that I otherwise would not have gone on. I think one of the first big physical challenges for me was Carlsbad Caverns. It's, I forget, 1.2 miles downhill basically into a massive cave. The temperature drops as you go down, and there's lots of stuff dripping everywhere. The ground's wet, and, it can be slippery in different areas. And now once you get down, there's an elevator to get back up. I opted out of the elevator, and being the knucklehead that I am, I decided I could walk back up because Kelly's gonna walk back up. That really, really pushed me to my limits. But I made it, and I think it really kind of set the tone for what was to come down the road. By the time I got to Mount Rainier and even Redwood National Park, I noticed I'd gotten a lot stronger. So I ended up going out on a 8-mile hike by myself, and it was a good hike. I hustled the whole time. It was just a mental thing of just pushing myself to see how fast I could do it. One thing I liked about the military was that it put me in situations that forced me to go beyond what I thought my limits were. I think there's a parallel to be made there with the national parks. Once you get out there, you find yourself in situations that you otherwise would not have. Before you know it, you've accomplished a big hill, you've climbed a mountain, you've traveled through streams, so many different things. And for me, it was kind of getting out into an open public space where there was a lot of unknowns and really getting out of my comfort zone. You know, one trip's not gonna cure anyone of anything or fix all your life problems, but in the moment, it does relieve that stress or like help you think maybe more outside the box on whatever is going on in somebody's life or your life, my life, whatever. As someone that's seen the chaos of war and the tragedy that it brings, I can honestly say the national parks did give me a sense of peace that I really hadn't felt probably since I was a teenager. But that therapy, I think, is not only limited to someone like myself or other veterans, but anyone can experience it. All you have to do is get out there and go visit some national parks.